Yes, good evening, all of you. So let us start with the class. So how many students are there in this batch? Those who will be joining for KVPY. Everybody has joined? Yes, everybody has joined, or some are remaining? All right, so let us start. So basically, in KVPY, we have to so, complete the syllabus by November. So we'll be moving accordingly. So some of the topics that you have done in your normal classes, that also will be covering, but not the theory part. So the theory part will be covering for those chapters which you have not done till now, and which you will be doing after November, so that your syllabus of KVPY is covered. So today we'll be starting with chemical equilibrium. So let us start. So first of all, what is an equilibrium? What is an equilibrium? Anyone? Yes, Arvind, unmute yourself. Yes, Arvind, unmute yourself. The chemical substance does not see any changes over time when in equilibrium. So that is in chemical equilibrium. So everything that is not changing, that is constant, is in equilibrium. So constant, basically, if you see over here, so carbon is reacting with oxygen to give me carbon dioxide. So is this an equilibrium reaction? So is this an equilibrium reaction? Yes, all of you type yes or no. Is this an equilibrium reaction? So Vihan is saying yes. Yes, Vihan, unmute yourself.
Yes, sir.
So is this an equilibrium reaction? Carbon plus oxygen is giving me carbon dioxide.
Yes, sir. They are stable, so I think
So what
yes.
do you understand by equilibrium reaction?
Sir, when the reacting, then the reactants form products, and then the vice versa does not happen.
Please repeat. When the
When the reactants form the products, and the products don't form the reactants.
reactant forms the products, so when the reactant will form the product, so that reaction is an equilibrium reaction. That means every chemical reaction. So every chemical reaction is an equilibrium reaction. So every chemical reaction there is some reactant and that will give me product. So every chemical reaction is an equilibrium reaction, right? Yes, Vihan?
Sir,
Now,
some may, but majorly
now,
not.
so every chemical reaction is not an equilibrium reaction. Now, if all the substances are in gaseous state, so if all the substances are in gaseous state, that is homogeneous and heterogeneous.
Yes, sir.
So that is different thing. So I'm asking what is an equilibrium? So I'll give you
When
an
rate of
example. You burn
forward
fossil
reaction
fuels,
is equal to
gases.
the rate of
Sorry.
The number of moles of the reactants is equal to number
when
of
rate
moles.
of forward reaction is equal
So when number of moles of the reactant is equal to number of moles of the product, that is an equilibrium reaction. Equal, or please repeat the definition. So
when
repeat
rate
the
of forward
definition.
reaction is equal to the rate of backward reaction.
So when rate of forward is equal to rate of backward reaction, that is known as equilibrium reaction. Now, first of all, what is rate of reaction? So rate of reaction, suppose A is reacting with B to give me C. So the rate at which the number of moles of A are reacting, and the rate at which the number of moles of B are reacting, and the rate at which the number of moles of C will be formed. So that is rate of reaction. Right? Suppose number of moles of A reacting is 4 moles per second. Then suppose the balanced equation is A plus 2B, that is giving me C. So number of moles of B reacting will be how much? 8 moles per second. And the number of moles of C formed will be 4 moles per second, right? So this is about equilibriums. So till there any doubts? Now this is now this is about rate of reaction. Now when I say equilibrium, first thing is the reaction should be reversible. So these are not reversible reactions. So carbon will combine with oxygen to give me carbon dioxide. So you burn fossil fuel, the carbon dioxide is getting produced. So from carbon dioxide, you cannot prepare the fossil fuel again. So these are not reversible reactions. So first of all, it should be reversible reaction. So any example of reversible reaction? So I'll give you one example. Nitrogen plus hydrogen, that will give me ammonia. Now ammonia gas on heating will decompose to give me nitrogen and hydrogen. So this is a reversible reaction. So first of all, for equilibrium, it should be reversible reaction. And then the second point is rate of forward reaction should be equal to rate of backward reaction. That is known as equilibrium reaction. So let us start with the chapter chemical equilibrium. Write down the heading equilibrium. So now the chapter name in NCERT is equilibrium. And that is divided into chemical equilibrium and ionic equilibrium. So first of all, what is a chemical reaction? So symbolic representation of any chemical change in terms of reactant and product is known as chemical reaction. So types of chemical reaction on the basis of physical states. So what do you understand by physical states? Solid, liquid, gas. So these are the physical states. So if all are in the same physical state, that is homogeneous reaction. So all reactants and products are in the same phase. So either all can be gases, or all can be liquid, or all can be solid. So these type of reactions are known as homogeneous reactions. And what are heterogeneous reactions? Reactants and products are not in the same phase. So more than one phase. Now on the basis of direction of the reaction, so there are irreversible reactions which are only in one direction. Then there are reversible reactions which are taking place in both the directions. So chemical reactions in which the product can be converted back into reactant is known as reversible reaction, and chemical reactions in which the product cannot be converted back into reactant are known as irreversible chemical reactions. So reversible chemical reactions proceed in forward as well as backward direction, while irreversible chemical reactions proceed only in one direction. that is in the forward direction. Then reversible reaction is possible in a closed container, and irreversible reaction can possible in only open container also. Now, reversible reactions will attain equilibrium. Irreversible reactions do not attain equilibrium. In reversible reactions, the reactants are not completely converted into products. So there will be equilibrium. So first, suppose I'm starting with nitrogen and hydrogen, and they are reacting to give me ammonia. Now, as soon as the concentration of ammonia will increase in the container, the ammonia will start decomposing to give me back nitrogen and hydrogen. And after some times, when the rate of forward and backward will become equal, I would say the equilibrium has been established. And after that, the concentration of all will become constant. But it does not mean that all of nitrogen and hydrogen has been reacted. So at equilibrium, there will be some amount of nitrogen and hydrogen, and ammonia will be also there. So first of all, let us understand how is equilibrium established. Suppose I am starting with only nitrogen and hydrogen in a container. So they will react to give me ammonia. Now, initially there will be some rate of forward reaction. So now as the concentration of nitrogen and hydrogen are decreasing, the rate of forward reaction will decrease. So as nitrogen and hydrogen are reacting, their concentration will decrease and the rate of forward reaction will decrease. So rate will depend upon the concentration of nitrogen and hydrogen present in the container. And the concentration of ammonia will start increasing. So as the nitrogen and hydrogen are reacting, ammonia will be forming in the container and the concentration of ammonia will be increasing in the container. Now what will happen? Now ammonia will also start decomposing to give me nitrogen and hydrogen. Now as the concentration of ammonia is increasing, the rate of backward reaction will increase. So rate of backward reaction will depend upon the concentration of reactant. So for backward reaction, what is my reactant? My reactant is ammonia. So rate of backward reaction will depend upon its reactant, that is ammonia. Now, as the concentration of ammonia is increasing, the rate of backward reaction will increase. Initially, there was no backward reaction. So rate of backward reaction was zero. Initially, we started with only nitrogen and hydrogen. So there was some rate of forward reaction, which is now decreasing because their concentration is decreasing. And now as the concentration of ammonia is increasing, the rate of backward reaction is increasing from zero. So rate of forward reaction is decreasing and the rate of backward reaction will increase from zero. And at some time, their rate will become equal. Then we say that the equilibrium has been established. Now, when the rates have become equal, that does not mean the reaction has stopped. So when the rates will become equal, the nitrogen and hydrogen will be still reacting to give me ammonia, and ammonia will be still decomposing to give me nitrogen and hydrogen. But the rate at which the nitrogen will be formed and the rate at which the moles of nitrogen will be decomposing will be same. That is the meaning when the rate is same. Then the number of moles or the concentration of nitrogen, hydrogen, and ammonia will not change. So that will become constant. So the number of moles will become constant at equilibrium, but the reaction is still taking place, forward as well as backward, and both at equal rates. So the concentration will not change. So that is why equilibrium is known as dynamic equilibrium. So the reaction is still going on, but the rates have become equal and the concentration will become constant after that. But at no instance, all the nitrogen and hydrogen will be completely converted to ammonia. So at equilibrium, all the three will be there present. So in equilibrium, the reactants are never completely converted into products. So there will be some amount of reactant remaining, and that will be in equilibrium with the product. So in irreversible reactions, reactants are nearly completely converted into product. So till here, any doubts? So write down the points of difference between reversible and irreversible reaction. Quickly write down, and when written, just type done. When written, just type done.
Sir, in the irreversible reactions, it says reactants are nearly completely converted, but in a few cases, aren't they like completely converted? Because we have the concept of limiting reagent, right?
So
So when
limiting.
one reactant,
So one of the
when one
reactants is completely consumed in limiting reagent. So limiting
Yeah.
reagent is the reactant that is completely consumed, right?
Yeah.
So the reactant is getting completely converted or not? That reactant, that is limiting reagent.
Oh, so they mean reactants,
That is
including
limiting
both.
reagent is also a reactant that is completely consumed in the reaction.
Yeah, but here it says nearly completely converted.
So nearly means 99.99%.
Oh, okay.
So this also will be discussing in the chapter chemical kinetics. So that is in your class 12. So then you will understand the meaning of completely converted nearly.
Yes, sir.
So it will be like, suppose this is the graph of concentration versus time for the reactant R. So as the reactant is getting consumed, its concentration will decrease. And at infinity, it will touch the x-axis. So it is not completely reacted, but it is 99.99% reacted. So it will become parallel to the x-axis and it will be touching the x-axis at infinity. So this is the graph of e to the power minus x in mathematics. So this will be studying in class 12.
Yes, sir. Got it.
Next point, generally thermal dissociations are held in closed vessel. So when equilibrium or dissociation is taking place, that is in the closed vessel, and thermal decompositions. So basically decompositions and dissociations are two different things. So decomposition is completely breakdown and that is irreversible, while dissociation is a reversible process. So dissociation is a reversible process that takes place generally in the closed vessel, and decomposition will take place in the open vessel. Next, any example of this equilibrium reaction is neutralization reaction, except for strong acid and strong base. So when you are reacting any weak acid or weak base, then this reaction will be always in equilibrium. So in this chapter, we'll be studying about weak acids and weak base only. So what are weak acids and weak base? Any example? Like ammonium hydroxide is a weak base. So it will dissociate very sparingly, like out of 1 mole, very small amount. 0.001 mole of ammonium hydroxide will dissociate in water. So it is a very weak base. And if I talk about NaOH, NaOH is a strong base. It will completely ionize to give me Na plus and OH minus ion. So what is a weak base? Which will dissociate very sparingly when dissolved in water. That is a weak base. And it will try to maintain its equilibrium. So there are sparingly soluble electrolytes which when dissolved in water, so some electrolytes which when dissolved in water are sparingly soluble and they generally remain in the solid form. So very few number of ions will be there in the solution form. So they remain in the solid form and they maintain the equilibrium. So all the weak electrolytes will maintain the equilibrium, like weak base and weak acid. So acetic acid is a weak acid that will give me acetate ion. So acetic acid is your vinegar that is used in your pickles. So that will give me acetate ion and H plus ion. So this is an example of weak acid and it will maintain its equilibrium. So it is also sparingly soluble. So it will also dissociate to a very small amount. That means from 1 mole, only 0.001 mole will dissociate. So if I dissolve 1 mole of this in water, a very small amount will be dissociating.
Sir, so both weak acids and weak bases try to remain at equilibrium.
Yes. All the weak electrolytes are sparingly soluble in water and they will maintain their equilibrium, and most of them will be in the solid form, very less soluble in water.
Sir, could you please scroll a bit down?
Sorry.
Sir, could you please scroll a bit down? Yeah, yeah.
So how many students are there in this batch for KVPY? So these are 2 batches now.
I think 7 or 8.
Okay. Let me take the attendance.
Oh, sir, even U1 is there, but his laptop got crashed or something.
So basically, now on the basis of direction, they can be defined as reversible and irreversible reactions. Now, on the basis of speed of the reaction, they can be defined as fast reactions and slow reactions. So fast reactions are generally very fast, that will take 10 to the power minus 5 seconds. That is 0.0001 seconds to complete. So fraction of a second to complete. And slow reactions are the one which take a considerable amount of time that can be measured. Some of the reactions are so slow, they take years to complete. Next, on the basis of heat of the reactions, they are classified as exothermic and endothermic reactions. So exothermic reactions are the one in which the heat is liberated. So heat is liberated, so delta H is negative. So suppose R is my reactant, that is giving me P product and some amount of heat is released. So exothermic reactions are the one in which the heat is released, and endothermic reactions are in the one in which the heat is absorbed. Next, change in heat energy. So the heat energy will be positive. And delta H will be negative over here. So delta Q, that is change in heat energy with the product, will be positive, and delta H will be negative in case of exothermic reactions. So in endothermic reaction, delta H is positive and the change in heat energy is negative. So these we'll be studying in more detail in the chapter called thermodynamics. Now, for any equilibrium, suppose A is in equilibrium with B. Suppose I say A to B reaction is exothermic. Now, what do you understand by exothermic? So, if I plot the energy graph, suppose this is the energy of A, and this is my product B. So, B can be at higher energy or lower energy. If A to B is exothermic, B will be at higher energy or lower energy. So, B will be at high or low. So if the reaction is exothermic, that means the amount of energy is released. So if suppose A is at this much energy, it will release some energy and it will go to the lower energy. So B will be at lower energy. So this reaction is exothermic and this much amount of energy will be released. Now, if A to B is exothermic, then you can say B to A will be endothermic. So law of conservation of energy, if from A to B energy is released, then B to A energy should be absorbed because it is a cyclic process. So if A to B energy is released, then B to A the energy will be absorbed. So till here, any doubts? Now, whenever question does not talk about direction, then we take forward direction only. So by default, if the reaction, if question is saying A is reacting to give me B, if no information is given about whether it's a reversible, then you take it to be forward direction only, and it is one way. So if it is saying that it is a reversible reaction, and it is saying that the forward reaction is exothermic, then automatically the backward reaction will be endothermic. And if the forward reaction is endothermic, and if the forward reaction is endothermic, then the backward reaction will be exothermic. Now write on the heading chemical equilibrium. So what is a chemical equilibrium? Any chemical reaction that is reversible in nature, and after some time it will attain equilibrium, and the rate of forward reaction will be equal to the rate of backward reaction, and this equilibrium is known as chemical equilibrium. So state of reversible reaction at which the rate of forward is equal to rate of backward is known as chemical equilibrium. So this is the first definition of chemical equilibrium. So rate of forward is equal to rate of backward. Then second, when the concentration of reactant and product will become constant, remain unchanged, then it is called as chemical equilibrium. So state of reversible reaction in which the concentration of reactant and the product concentration of the product remains unchanged, is known as chemical equilibrium. Now, characteristics of chemical equilibrium. One more thing, when the rate of forward and rate of backward is equal, the exchange of energy will become zero. So what kind of energy? That is Gibbs free energy. So what is Gibbs free energy? We'll be talking this in the chapter thermodynamics. So just to give you an idea, if A and B are in equilibrium, there is no change in energy. Neither the heat is released nor absorbed. Now come to the characteristics of chemical equilibrium. First point, it is a dynamic equilibrium, and at this stage of reaction takes place both in the direction of same speed, although it appears to be stopped. So first of all, chemical equilibrium is a dynamic equilibrium. The reaction will not stop. So even after the equilibrium has been attained, the reaction will be continuing in both the directions. Second point, at the state of equilibrium, both the reactants and products are present and neither of them is fully consumed. And their concentration do not change with respect to time after the equilibrium has been established. So after the equilibrium has been established, their concentration will become constant. So if you want, I can go a bit slower if you are making notes. Next, third point, the state of equilibrium is not affected by the presence of a catalyst. So the state of equilibrium is not affected by the presence of the catalyst. It only helps to attain the equilibrium state in less or more time.
Sir, what is delta G?
That is Gibbs free energy. So this will be discussing in Gibbs free energy. So there is H stands for enthalpy, U stands for internal energy, then S stands for entropy, G stands for Gibbs free energy. So all this we'll be discussing in a chapter called thermodynamics. So these all will be covered in thermodynamics. So if there is any catalyst present, the catalyst will increase the rate of reaction. So if A is reacting and it is attaining an equilibrium with B, if I'm using a catalyst, the rate at which A is getting converted to B will increase. But when the equilibrium has been established, both the rates will be equal. So catalyst will only reduce the time in which the equilibrium has been established. After the equilibrium has been established, it will not affect the equilibrium in any way. So the state of equilibrium is not affected by the presence of any catalyst. It only helps to attain the equilibrium state in less time. Next point, change in pressure, temperature, or concentration favors one of the reaction and thus shift the equilibrium point in one direction. So change in pressure, temperature, or concentration will increase the rate of reaction and they will shift the equilibrium. So how will the equilibrium will be shifting? I'll give you one example. So suppose, let me take the equilibrium. I'm taking any weak acid. Suppose I'm taking acetic acid, which is a weak acid. That will give me acetate ion and H plus ion. Now, suppose I'm adding a strong acid, HCl from outside. That is the source of H plus ion. Now, once the equilibrium has been established, if I'm adding H plus ion from the outside, what will happen? The concentration of H plus ion will increase. And what will this H plus ion do? It will react with the acetate ion and it will give me back acetic acid. And it will try to maintain its equilibrium position. So everything in this universe has the tendency to maintain its equilibrium. So this equilibrium will also be maintaining its equilibrium position and it will try to reduce the concentration of H plus ion from that is coming from outside. So change in pressure. So for pressure, let us take an example of gas equilibrium. So nitrogen plus hydrogen, that is giving me ammonia. So now if I'm increasing the pressure of hydrogen gas, what will happen? Once the equilibrium has been established, if I'm increasing the pressure of hydrogen gas, now again the equilibrium will shift in the right direction. So now the hydrogen will start reacting. Once equilibrium has been established, now I'm increasing the pressure of the hydrogen gas. Now hydrogen will start reacting with nitrogen and again it will give me ammonia and it will try to maintain its equilibrium again. So change in pressure, temperature, and concentration favors one of the reactions and thus shift the equilibrium point in one direction. Now suppose if I'm increasing the pressure of ammonia, the equilibrium will shift in backward direction. So ammonia will start decomposing to give me back the reactants. If I'm increasing the pressure of the reactants, then it will shift in the forward direction. So there can be shift of equilibrium in any one direction, either forward or backward. Last point, change in free energy is equal to zero at the state of equilibrium. So at the state of equilibrium, change in Gibbs free energy will be zero. So when equilibrium has been established, there will be no energy absorbed or released after equilibrium has been established. So change in Gibbs free energy is equal to zero at equilibrium. Now graphical representation of an equilibrium. Suppose my equilibrium is R is giving me P. So R is my reactant and P is my product. Suppose initially I'm starting with only reactant, the concentration of reactant is R0 and there is no product, the product is 0. Now the reactant will be start getting consumed and its concentration of the reactant will be decreasing and the concentration of product will be increasing. So the product will be formed and the concentration of product will be increasing. Now when the equilibrium has been established, their concentration will become constant, right? Now in the second, same thing, but when the equilibrium has been established, their concentration have become constant and the concentrations are equal at equilibrium. So in this at equilibrium, the concentration of reactant is more than the concentration of product. And in this equilibrium, the concentration of product is more than concentration of reactant at equilibrium. So the concentration will become constant, but it is not fixed that reactant should have more concentration or product should have more concentration. This depends upon the value of equilibrium constant. So what is equilibrium constant? We'll be discussing this within 5 minutes. So equilibrium constant, as the name suggests, is a constant. What is this? We'll be discussing. Now, law of mass action. This was given by Goldberg and Wayne. So according to this, the rate of dissociation of the reactant and the rate of formation of product is directly proportional to the active mass of itself at constant temperature. So basically, if A is my reactant, the rate of reaction will depend upon concentration of A. And suppose B is my reactant, then it will also depend upon the concentration of B. Raised to power some coefficient. It can be 1, it can be anything else. It can be fractional also, it can be integer also, anything. Right? So the rate at which the A will be reacting will depend upon the concentration of A present raised to power something. The rate at which the B will be reacting will depend upon the concentration of B raised to power something. This something is known as order of reaction. So what is order of reaction? The power which is the reactant is raised to power is known as order of reaction. So order with respect to A is M1 and order with respect to B is M2. Then this is the rate at which the number of moles of C are getting formed. Now this statement is saying the rate of chemical reaction is directly proportional to the active mass. Now what do you understand by active mass? So suppose I take NaOH, it will completely dissociate to give me Na plus and OH minus ion. So all the OH minus ion are active over here and they can be reacted if I'm putting some HCl or something like this. Now if I talk about ammonium hydroxide, so ammonium hydroxide will give me ammonium ion and OH minus ion. So ammonium hydroxide is a weak base, it will not completely dissociate. So here active mass is the concentration of OH minus ion that has actually been dissociated. So that will react with the acid. Suppose this is an acid-base reaction. So active mass is the concentration of the reactant that is actively taking part in the reaction. So some amount of ammonium hydroxide will be in the solid form. So that will be not counted as active mass. Only the OH minus ion that is dissolved in the aqueous solution will be counted as active mass. So active mass is nothing but your concentration in molarity. So you must have studied molarity, capital M, in the first chapter, mole concept. So molarity is number of moles upon volume. That is nothing but your concentration in moles per liter. So active mass is nothing but in solution form, it is the molar concentration. That is number of moles upon volume. Now these are some of the examples you can study. So what is the active mass of 4 grams of hydrogen in 2-liter volume? So active mass will be the concentration, that is number of moles upon volume. So number of moles will be weight divided by molecular weight, and volume is 2 liters. So this will come out to be 1. Similarly, over here, the active mass of nitrogen will be number of moles upon volume. So number of moles will be weight divided by molecular weight of nitrogen gas, that is 28, upon volume, that is 2. So this will be 1 by 4. Similarly, over here you can calculate weight divided by molecular weight upon volume. So this will be 1 by 2, and 1, 2 will go. This is 1. Now solve this example. A 2-liter.
Could you please scroll a bit up? One second. Sir, could you please repeat why you did 4 by 2?
First case, so this is number of moles. So number of moles is weight divided by molecular weight. So weight of
Oh, yes. I forgot that.
Now solve this example. A 2-liter flask contains 1.4 gram nitrogen and 1 gram of hydrogen. The ratio of the active mass of nitrogen and hydrogen will be, so the volume of the flask is 2 liters. So what will be the active mass of nitrogen? That will be number of moles of nitrogen upon volume. So number of moles will be weight of nitrogen divided by molecular weight of nitrogen gas. So this is nitrogen gas. So what will be the molecular weight? 28, and volume is 2. So active mass of hydrogen will be how much? That is number of moles upon volume. So number of moles of hydrogen will be weight divided by molecular weight, and volume is also 2. So find out the ratio of this. So 2 and 2 will get cancelled out. So this will be 1 by 20, and so 1 by 20 and 1 by 2. So this will give me 1 by 10. So answer will come out to be 1:10. So done. Now come to the example 2. In any chemical reaction, equilibrium is supposed to be established when. So when will the equilibrium be established? Mutually opposite reaction undergo. Concentration of the reactant and resulting products are equal. Velocity of mutual reactions become equal. Temperature of mutual opposite reactions become equal. So what is the condition for equilibrium to be established?
C, velocity of mutual reactions becomes
So
equal.
velocity of mutual reactions will become equal. So rate of forward will be equal to rate of backward.
Sir, can you show the question again? Yes, sir, done.
Next, write down the heading. Mathematical expression of law of mass action. Now suppose A and B are reacting, that is in equilibrium with C and D, which are products. Now the rate of, suppose this is my reaction, A plus B, that is giving you C plus D. So rate of forward reaction will be rate constant into concentration of A into concentration of B. Then rate of backward reaction will be rate constant into concentration of C into concentration of D. So what will be the backward reaction? C plus D, that is giving me A plus B. So the rate depends upon two things. First is the concentration of the reactant. So for this reaction, the reactants are A and B. And secondly, a constant known as rate constant. So rate constant is defined for the reaction. So for every reaction, the value of rate constant is different. So for forward reaction, the value of rate constant will be different. For backward reaction, the value of rate constant will be different. So rate of forward reaction will be rate constant for forward reaction into concentration of reactant. Now for backward reaction, the reactants are C and D. So rate constant for backward reaction will be rate constant for backward reaction into concentration of reactant for backward reaction, that are C and D. Now what is the equilibrium condition? So rate of forward will be equal to rate of backward. So rate of forward will be equal to rate of backward. So I can write rate constant for forward upon rate constant for backward is equal to concentration of products divided by concentration of reactant. So this ratio is known as equilibrium constant. So the ratio of concentration of product upon concentration of reactant is known as equilibrium constant. That is denoted by KEQ. So equilibrium constant is nothing but rate constant for forward reaction divided by rate constant for backward reaction. And that is nothing but concentration of products upon concentration of reactants.
Sir?
Yes.
Sir, if we take an aqueous solution, let's say neutralization reaction, everything would be in aqueous state, right? So will the active masses be 1?
Please repeat.
Sir, if we take a reaction in which both the reactants and products all are in aqueous solution, so active mass would be 1, right? How do we calculate
Yeah.
equilibrium constant for such
Active
reaction?
mass for pure solids and pure liquids is taken out to be 1. So suppose there is pure water. So that is 1. Pure solid like iron or any other pure metal. So that is 1. So for solids and pure liquids, the active mass is taken out to be 1. So what is the concentration of water in pure water? It's 100%. 100% water only. So if I take a piece of iron, what is the concentration of iron in that? That is 100%. So for 100% pure liquids and pure solids, that is concentration is 1.
So in neutralization reactions, is H2O active mass 1?
Neutralization reaction, what you're asking?
Is active mass of H2O equal to 1?
Active mass of H2O. Not exactly.
Yes, sir.
So first of all, H2O is not a reactant, that is a product. So these are the reactants. So active mass is defined for the reactants only for irreversible reaction. If it is a reversible reaction, then we'll be talking in different terms. So if you are talking like this, it is a reversible reaction, then this is known as basically the equilibrium constant for this reaction will be what? Concentration of H plus ion into concentration of OH minus ion upon concentration of H2O. Now here the active mass of H2O will not be 1, this will be 55.55. How? So what is active mass? Number of moles upon volume. So I am taking 1 liter of water. So 1 liter means 1000 ml, and the density of water you know is 1 gram per ml. So 1000 ml will be 1000 grams. So number of moles will be weight of water, that is 1000 divided by molecular weight of water, that is 18. And the volume will be how much? That is 1 liter. So number of moles will be 55.5.
Okay, sir. Sir, suppose we have a reaction NaOH plus HCl gives NaCl plus H2O. Over here, all would be in aqueous solution. So do we take 1 for all of them?
No, their concentration will be the molarity. So how you define molarity? So in mole concept, you have studied concentration of solutions. So molarity,
Yes, sir.
normality. So suppose when I'm dissolving NaOH, suppose I'm dissolving 46 grams of NaOH in 1 liter of water, or 40 grams of NaOH in 1 liter of water. So
Yes, sir.
the
We know this.
concentration will be, so this is how you'll be finding the concentration. So now a ratio of equilibrium constant, that is the ratio. What is equilibrium constant? The ratio of rate constant for forward reaction upon rate constant for backward reaction. That is nothing but the concentration or of the product upon concentration of the reactant. So this thing is known as equilibrium constant. Now one more thing I want to add over here. So suppose A and B are reacting to give me C and D. So this reaction is A moles of A plus small b moles of B small is giving me small c moles of C and small d moles of B. So these are the coefficients of the balanced chemical reaction. So like if I'm writing nitrogen plus hydrogen, that is giving me ammonia. So right now the reaction is not balanced. And if I balance this reaction, this will be 2 and this is 3. So these are the stoichiometric coefficient of the balanced reaction. So if the stoichiometric coefficient of the balanced reaction is given, then rate is rate constant. So for forward reaction, it will be concentration of reactant raised to power their stoichiometric coefficient. Similarly, rate for backward reaction will be rate constant for backward for their reactants raised to power their stoichiometric coefficient. So is this clear?
Yes, sir.
So rate constant for forward reaction is you can write down like this. So uh, basically when the rate of forward will be equal to rate of backward reaction, that is when the equilibrium has been established. So you can write Kf into concentration of A raised to power A and concentration of B raised to power B. will be equal to Kb, concentration of C raised to power C and concentration of D raised to power D. Right, now Kf upon Kb will be, that is your equilibrium constant, will be concentration of product raised to power their stoichiometric coefficient upon concentration of reactant raised to power their stoichiometric coefficient. So the stoichiometric coefficient will also come in the power. Here in this reaction, the stoichiometric coefficient is assumed to be 1. So for any equilibrium constant, also include their stoichiometric coefficient in the power. Now, forms of equilibrium constants. So equilibrium constants are of different forms. The first one is in the form of volume, then in the terms of partial pressure, and in the terms of mole fraction. So when you are taking the solutions like A and B are your liquids are in the solution form like NaOH, HCl or so on. So then we'll be talking about equilibrium constant in the form of concentration or volumes. So that is nothing but concentration of the reactants upon concentration of the product upon concentration of the reactant. So Kc is the equilibrium constant in terms of the concentration, right? Now Kp is in terms of pressure. So there's an equilibrium constant Kp that is in terms of pressure. So when these are the reactant and the product are gases, so we'll be talking about their partial pressure. So suppose this is the reaction. So suppose this is the reaction A plus B is giving me C plus D. So suppose they are in the aqueous form, they are in the solution form. Then, and these are the stoichiometric coefficient of the balanced reaction. Then equilibrium constant Kc will be concentration of product raised to power the stoichiometric coefficient upon concentration of reactant raised to power the stoichiometric coefficient. Now, so for the same reaction, if I take in terms of gases, so suppose A gas is reacting with B gas, and that is giving me C gas. So C gas and D gas as the product. And A, B, C, D, small a, B, C, D are their stoichiometric coefficient. So I'll be expressing another equilibrium constant that is Kp, that will be partial pressure of C gas raised to power the stoichiometric coefficient that is small c and this is capital C. And into partial pressure of D gas raised to power the stoichiometric coefficient upon partial pressure of A gas raised to power the stoichiometric coefficient and partial pressure of B gas raised to power the stoichiometric coefficient. Now, what do you understand by partial pressure? Yes. So what is partial pressure? So the total pressure. So there are four gases. The total pressure will be pressure of gas A plus pressure of gas B plus pressure of gas C plus pressure of gas D. So
Dalton's law of partial pressure.
individual pressure of these gases is known as partial pressure. So partial pressure of gas A will be nothing but mole fraction of gas A into total pressure. Now, what do you understand by mole fraction? So mole fraction you must have studied in mole concept. So mole fraction of A will be number of moles of A upon total number of moles, right? So now this it is nothing but giving you the same information. So the total pressure I can write as so total pressure into volume of the container is total number of moles into R into T temperature of the container. Similarly, pressure of A into volume of the container. So volume of the container will be same because they are in the same container. That will be number of moles of A into R into temperature of the container. So if I divide these two equations, so PT by PA will be NT by NA. So I can write PA is equal to NA upon NT into PT. So partial pressure of A will be mole fraction of A into total pressure. So this is the formula for partial pressure. So mole fraction of A into total pressure. So what is mole fraction? Number of moles of A upon total number of moles. So total number of moles will be number of moles of A plus number of moles of B plus number of moles of C plus number of moles of B.
Sir, do we raise partial pressure into C, the entire thing to the power C, or only C to the power C?
So PC to the power C, PD to the power D, PA to the power A, PB to the power B.
Okay.
Sir, so how did you get that pressure of A is equal to number of moles of A into total pressure?
This one.
No, the one above that. You've underlined it, double underline.
This one.
No, the one exactly above that.
This one. So this is
Yeah.
the formula. So how did I got this formula? So first I'm writing the ideal gas equation. Total pressure will be total number of moles into RT and the volume of the container. Let the volume of the container be V. Now if I talk about pressure of A into the volume of the container will be same. That is volume of the container is number of moles of A into RT. So I'm dividing these two equations. So I'll be getting
Okay.
PT upon PA is NT upon NA. So from here I can write like this. And this is nothing but PA is equal to mole fraction of A into total pressure.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So any doubts still over here? So now there are two, in fact, three equilibrium constants. The first one is for the concentration when it is in the solution form, and the second one is in the terms of partial pressure when it is in the gaseous form. And the third one is in terms of mole fraction. Same for the same reaction. What is the reaction? AA plus BB is in equilibrium with CC and DD. So Kx will be given as mole fraction of C raised to power stoichiometric coefficient of C and mole fraction of D into stoichiometric coefficient of D upon mole fraction of A into small a and mole fraction of D into small a. Now you know what is mole fraction? So these are the three types
Yes,
of
sir.
equilibrium constant.
Sir, can you show the volume form of equilibrium constant?
Sorry, please repeat.
Sir, can you show the volume form of
What?
Sir, the volume form of K?
Your audio is not clear. Can you type what you're saying?
Sir, she's asking you to show the volume form of the
Volume form.
equilibrium.
KC form.
Yeah.
This is KC.
Yes, sir, done.
So now there are three equilibrium constants and these are interconvertible. So let us derive the relation between Kc, Kp and Kx. So what is Kc? Concentration of C raised to power C, concentration of B raised to power D upon concentration of A raised to power A and concentration of B raised to power B. Now using the ideal gas equation, PV is equal to nRT. So number of moles upon volume will be your concentration and P into RT. So pressure of A will be concentration of A into RT. Similarly, pressure of B will be concentration of B into RT, and similarly for C and D. So now I'm writing Kp. Kp will be partial pressure of A raised to power A, pressure of B raised to power B upon pressure of C raised to power C and pressure of D raised to power D. So what will be pressure of A? Concentration of A into RT. So A raised to power A and RT raised to power A. Similarly, B raised to power B. So concentration of B raised to power B into RT raised to power B upon concentration of C raised to power C into RT raised to power C and concentration of D raised to power D and RT raised to power D.
Sir, could you please repeat what RT is?
So PV is equal to nRT, ideal gas equation. So what is concentration? So pressure of A will be number of moles of A into RT. So pressure of A will be number of moles of A upon volume into RT. So number of moles of upon volume is a concentration. So pressure of A will be concentration of A into RT. Similarly, pressure of B will be concentration of B into RT. So this is what I'm writing over here. Now concentration of A raised to power A, so I can write this like this: concentration of A raised to power A, concentration of B raised to power B, upon concentration of C raised to power C, concentration of D raised to power D, and RT raised to power A plus B minus C plus D. Right? C plus D will be in the denominator. So if I'll take the C plus D in the numerator, it will be minus. So this is nothing but your Kc. So Kp can be written as Kc and RT raised to power A plus B minus C plus D. So what is this A, B, C, D? A, B, C, D are the stoichiometric coefficient. Now what is delta N? Delta N is the change in number of moles, right? So change in number of moles is the number of moles of product minus number of moles of reactant. Sorry, I have written the Kp in the opposite way. It should be Pc and Pd on the top and A and B at the bottom. So this is the reaction. So product upon reactant.
Sir, could you please scroll down to where you wrote Kp is equal to Kc into RT? Yeah, 1 second.
This just a second. I have written it opposite way. Now what is Kp? Kp will be partial pressure of C raised to power small c. This is and partial pressure of D raised to power small d upon partial pressure of A raised to power A and partial pressure of B raised to power B. So C this will be concentration of C and RT raised to power C, concentration of D raised to power D, RT raised to power D upon concentration of A raised to power A and RT raised to power A and concentration of B raised to power B and RT raised to power B. So this will be concentration of C raised to power C, concentration of D raised to power D, upon concentration of A raised to power A, concentration of B raised to power B, and RT raised to power C plus D and minus A plus B. So this is my Kp. So I can write Kp is equal to, now this is Kc and RT raised to power. Now what is C plus D minus A plus B? So that is change in number of moles. So number of moles of product minus number of moles of reactant. That is change in number of moles. So RT raised to power delta N. Now one more important point to note over here. So when I'm using this, so I'll be using the equation PV is equal to nRT. That is an ideal gas equation. That is valid only for gases. So partial pressures are only valid for gases. So when I'm writing partial pressure of C is concentration of C, so I'm using ideal gas equation that is only valid for gases. So this delta N should be only for gases. Delta N is the change in number of moles of the gases. So I'll give you one example. Suppose A gas is reacting with twice of B gas to give me thrice of C gas. So what will be delta N? So it will be only for gases, number of moles of the gaseous product minus number of moles of the gaseous reactant. Now suppose A is my solid. So A is my solid, then delta N will be 3 minus 2 only. So don't take the number of moles of the solid because the equation that we are using is only valid for gases. So when you are writing this, Kp is equal to Kc into RT power delta N. Delta N is the change in number of moles of only gases, only gaseous product and gaseous reactant. So because ideal gas equation is valid only for gases, So any doubts still over here? So this is the relation between Kp and Kc that you have to remember. So Kp is equal to Kc into RT power delta Mg. Now let us find out the relation between Kp and Kx. Now what is Kp? So Kp will be partial pressure of C raised to power C, partial pressure of D raised to power D upon partial pressure of A raised to power A and partial pressure of B raised to power B. Now what is partial pressure? So partial pressure of C will be mole fraction of C into total pressure. Similarly, mole fraction of D into total pressure for D and mole fraction of A into total pressure of A and mole fraction of B into total pressure of B. Mole fraction of C raised to power C, mole fraction of D raised to power D upon mole fraction of A raised to power A and mole fraction of B raised to power B. So this will be Kp and total pressure raised to power C plus D minus A plus B. Now this is C plus D minus A plus B is your delta Ng. So total pressure raised to power delta Ng and this is your Kx mole fraction. So Kp is equal to Kx into total pressure raised to power delta Ng. So this is the relation between Kp and Kx that you have to remember. So first relation is between Kp and Kc and RT raised to power delta N, and second is with Kp and Kx and Pt raised to power delta N. So Pt is the total pressure of the system.
Sir, could you repeat the last part?
So till here it's clear. So partial pressure of
Yes,
A
sir.
will be mole fraction of A into total pressure. This formula I'm using. So this will be Xc, Xd, Xa, Xb raised to power this. So this will be nothing but your Kx. Equilibrium constant in terms of mole fraction. And this is your Kp. And this will be Pt, C plus D minus A plus B. So this is your delta N. So Kp is equal to Kx Pt raised to power delta N. So this is the relation between Kp and Kx. And this is the relation between Kp and Kc.
Okay, sir. Thank you.